hype man like that before introduce me. And it's probably the best introduction I've received on this campaign. Let me just stand in a central location for everyone. My back's not turned to anyone. So I guess I want to start off. We had a lot of talk about victory earlier today, and I want to kind of continue along that. I get a little wooden pulpit. I don't have any notes. But anyway, let's continue along the lines of victory. We've had a lot of victories from the Supreme Court lately. It is a good June to be a Republican.
Yes, amen.
We had a win in Maine for school choice. We had a win in New York for gun concealed carry permits and shall issue gun permits, which should affect Maryland. Mm-hmm. We had a major win, the win of a lifetime, the biggest win that our movement has ever had in the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Mm-hmm. Which means now we can take the fight at the state level successfully. We can outlaw, criminalize abortion. And I want to be unapologetic that that is the end goal. Our end goal is not to create a welfare state. It is to just create the state does its job on the issue of murder. That is the goal. So we had a major win there, and then afterwards, not as major, not as surprising, but a high school football coach won his lawsuit at the Supreme Court for being able to pray on the field, on the 50-yard line. So it is a good time to be a Republican. We are winning.
That's the only kneeling we should do.
Kneel before God.
That's right.
Amen.
So along those lines, we actually experienced a long-term strategy of Republican activists actually succeeded in that we get justices on the Supreme Court. That has succeeded, despite the fact that we're batting around 500 with, snakes like John Roberts, with snakes like Sandra Day O'Connor and Anthony Kennedy. We finally got enough, batting 50%, we finally got enough good justices on the Supreme Court to make some real reforms legally in our country. So it is a good time to be a Republican, and the future of the Republican Party is brighter now than it has been in a long time, partially thanks to Trump. And he followed through on what he said in 2016 about overturning Roe by appointing justices to the Supreme Court. So he followed through on that. He captured a movement that was grassroots, that was anti-establishment, and that is the future of the Republican Party, is anti-establishment. It is working class. At the Red Wave Candidate Forum that I hosted, Bernie Flowers was probably the only one who actually gave an answer to this question, and that was the future of the Republican Party. What is the future of the Republican Party? And he's the only one that answered the question as the future as opposed to what it is, and he said Big Tent. And he's right. I believe the future of the Republican Party is Big Tent, and the challenge of a Big Tent is that there's an inability to govern well within a big tent. However, we have a lot of reason for optimism. Because think about the local level as your farm system for a Major League Baseball team. Think about it. The state legislatures, maybe in Congress, there's not much of a difference between Republican and Democrat in the Congress. When in the state legislature, we see dramatic differences. This is where the pro-life legislation was being passed on a state level. This was where we saw actual combating of branch Covidianism, as I call it, where the state of COVID, the state religion of COVID was enforced on all of you. The state legislatures were the ones pushing back on that the most. And then you have, some obvious champions like Ron DeSantis. Who is it that is pushing back on men taking over women's sports? The state legislatures. And you even had some states ban transgendering children medically. We had some states do that. So the state legislatures are bright right now. And again, the state legislatures. Who's fighting most for election integrity? The state legislatures. In Arizona, in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan. in Wisconsin. State legislatures are doing the most, and the state legislatures are, we have some good state legislature candidates in here tonight. So I want to recognize Scott Willens and Sally Taylor. And hopefully Maryland can have a good state legislature that can advance the ball. But obviously local elections are where a lot of the change can happen. And we do not have a good board of commissioners here in Carroll County. We simply do not. 2 of the 5 commissioners are open Democrats. You have Stephen Wance, whose seat I'm running for, openly supports gun control. He is openly anti-Second Amendment. Dennis Frazier not only openly supports abortion, but has an F rating from the NRA. How, as a Republican, do you have an F rating from the NRA? I don't know.
He's not related to me.
He's not related. Yes, the other Fraziers. So that was 2 of ours, and then we have Ed Rothstein, who's Mr. Real Estate Developer, who's Mr. Branch Covidian himself, and then we have Richard Weaver, who's, I guess, retiring off into the sunset, and then Eric Boucher, who's more libertine. At least he's an adult in the room sometimes, but he's not exactly a conservative like I am. So that being said, I think we have a real chance for reform here at a local level, and that's why I'm running. I see open seats, and those open seats mean an opportunity for an outsider like myself to hop in, run for office, and win. In 2022, which is when we filed for office, filed this campaign, January 4th, I believe was the date. Since that time, we have raised the most money in our district race. We have spent the most money in our district race. There are 5 candidates in this race, and we are the most serious about it. We are the ones that think we have to actually work for the voters, work for the votes, and not just be entitled to the votes, or just show up on game day and expect the votes. So I got to thank you all for that, because this club has been very great, very supportive of my campaign. I'm very grateful for that. So the key issues that launched me into this are branch Covidianism, as I call it. I believe that the hysteria over the COVID pandemic constitutes a religion. It had its own creation story in the wet markets, the mythical wet markets. It had its own works-based salvation that we needed to be saved from, which was the virus itself. We needed to be saved from the virus. It was a works-based salvation of masking, locking down, social distancing, and vaccinating.
Mass formation.
Mass formation psychosis. So that was, and then of course it was an eschatology. It was an end times doomsday scenario that we were all going to be doomed if we didn't take these measures of salvation and run with them. We had our high priest in Anthony Fauci. We had our high priest in Francis Collins. We had our high priest in Debbie Birx. And of course, Andrew Cuomo out in the governor of New York was also America's high priest governor for a time until he got canceled. The angel of death. And then of course we had Larry Hogan, who quite honestly was malfeasant and malicious towards his citizenry in Maryland. Not only did he show such disdain for small businesses, him and Kelly Schultz, who said that you were not essential if you didn't meet her list of qualifications, but Larry Hogan would go on to ban early treatments in Maryland. He would go on to use the monoclonal antibodies for himself so he can use this treatment, but you can't use this treatment. He banned those after he partook, which is malicious. And then, obviously, I disagree with the government's push of the vaccine, paying for it, because, again, that is not the government's role to pay for a corporation's product. And it's certainly not the government's role to push that product on children as they are doing right now. This was the major issue that pushed me to run for office. I'm the pissed off American that's angry about the lockdowns, the mandates, the violations of our Constitution. And as I look into these issues, that was the starting point. That was the match that lit the fuse. And the dynamite is we have a lot more issues going on in Carroll County. One of the biggest issues that's come up since my campaign is the education, the Board of Education, the fight with them, and how our county commissioners are very unprofessional and antagonistic towards probably the best Board of Education we have in the state of Maryland.
Yes.
We're the Board of Education that led the way on fighting to unmask children in open schools. And our county commissioners fought them on that, especially Dennis Fraser.
Dennis, just call him Dennis.
Dennis.
He's a very bad man.
So, and what I see is that these groomers, these left-wing indoctrinators, they want to make an example of Carroll County because we're fighting back. We are pushing back against teaching critical race theory in public schools. We are pushing back against wholeheartedly adopting the sex education curriculum that the State Board of Education, which was all appointed by Larry Hogan, wants to embed in our school system. So we need county commissioners that fight for children and to protect children in public schools. Along the other lines is that we need county commissioners that do the job. We currently had a county administrator position virtually outsourced. The county commissioners virtually outsourced their job to a county administrator position. That was a subversion of the will of the people, because all 13 departments of the county government should report directly to the elected officials, not to someone who's an executive, an unelected executive underneath them.
That's right.
That is a quasi-charter government. We don't want that here in Carroll County, and I don't want that here in Carroll County either. Luckily, reforms have been made since I've raised this issue on my campaign, so hopefully we need to be vigilant in maintaining those reforms. Lastly, we need to combat inflation. We need to make sure that this rapid inflation we're seeing does not hike all the property taxes in Carroll County. This is simple economics, that we need to lower the rate of property taxes to offset inflation. This is a calculation that can be made and we can prepare for.
Very good.
So this is simple economics, and this is also conservative governance. We don't want to raise property tax rates by doing nothing. And this Biden inflation we're seeing, low estimates of 9%, could be as high as 16%, but what the number that matters most to me is how much more everyone is paying per month because of all the price increases for food, for gasoline, for energy. Property taxes shouldn't be a surprise once in a year bill that went up because of inflation. So those are some of my key issues, and I want to talk more about a day one agenda. So July 19th is the primary. I'm running to win this thing.
Amen.
And day one, hopefully, and I'll know who all the other 4 commissioners are, and we'll work together ahead of time, because there's no time like the present to start coming up with solutions, especially when the Carroll County's current budget forecasts deficits in the future, which to me is unacceptable. But there's no time like the present to start coming up with solutions. So in 2019, the Republican Central Committee of Carroll County adopted a resolution calling for the restoration of public prayer on the county commissioners.
Right.
Yes.
Day one, we're going to do that. That is a day one motion that I will make. We need to have a local government that recognizes that we are one nation under God, that our rights come from Him, and the state is not God, which is very important. So that's a day one thing. Additionally, never again COVID policies I want to enact in the budget, or not in the budget, but in the county code. We need to protect against lockdowns, mandates that are unconstitutional. I also believe we need to curb the power and authority of the health department, which is required and maintained by the state of Maryland. The Carroll County does not have enough accountability does not have enough direct authority of the Maryland Health Department, and I think that's a major problem in our current government structure, which means we should not be writing blanket checks to the health department, increasing their budget to over $4 million over the next few years so that they can have the authority to impose quarantines, unconstitutional quarantines on you. So those are some specifics. Otherwise, we need to add extra protections in the county code. And obviously, we need to make sure that we're funding our educational system. I don't think we'll have to. I think that our BMW slate, our conservative school board slate, will win. So hopefully we don't have to play carrot stick with making sure our kids are not being indoctrinated, making sure they're not doing drag queen story hour in public school media centers, and making sure that, our school board's done great so far. Hopefully the new BMW slate makes it a 5-0 conservative majority on the Board of Education, which is phenomenal. And we would be the envy of counties all across the country with us. And I got to thank the parents who rose up several years ago, before I was running, before many of these issues, and before parents all across the country were paying attention. Parents here in Carroll County were paying attention to the school board races. Largely started after the closures of many schools in our county. Parents wised up, and thankfully during the last two years we had a good conservative school board that fought to unmask schools, that fought to put the brakes on critical race theory in schools, and other parts of the county are envious of that, or other parts of the country are envious of that. And I want to thank Ken Collar for being the president of the school board. I want to thank Sarah Battaglia, Donna Savigny, and Marsha Herbert, the other three faithful of the Fighting For on our school board. But we need some Fighting For on our county commissioners as well. Well, hopefully we can get Fighting 5. But we need a Fighting 5 on the county commissioners as well. A fighting conservative bloc. That's what we need. That's what I want. And with that, we can do a lot. County commissioners, few boards ago, Robin Frazier can attest to it, they passed a resolution to make Carroll County a sanctuary county for the Second Amendment, which is a beautiful way to fight back against the 2013 unconstitutional gun control acts that were passed under Martin O'Malley. I think we can move on from that. We just had the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I would like to see Carroll County adopt a resolution becoming a sanctuary city for life. And along those lines, I don't know how much we can get done working with Annapolis and our delegation, but hopefully we have a solid delegation, including Sally Taylor and Scott Willens here, that we have a solid delegation to work with, because I would like to do more. I would like to actually work with our delegation to pass some changes to the county code, and we need the delegation to do that. And part of the county, some of the ordinances I'd like to pass are we ban the shipment of mifepristone to Carroll County.
There you go.
For those who are unaware, over 42% of abortions are carried out with a mifepristone, which is a drug that can be prescribed, and the Biden administration used emergency use to make it teleprescription under emergency powers. But the future of the abortion industry is mifepristone. That's the future of the abortion industry, and I'd like to ban the shipment of that to our county, just like the way that Montgomery County bans certain weapons parts from being shipped there.
There you go.
You'll have our back when you get there. For sure.
Hopefully we can slip that underneath the goalie as a courtesy legislation.
Yeah.
And hopefully we have a governor in Dan Cox who will greatly sign that. So those are some specifics, and as you can see, I have specifics. When I say we stand for pro-life, I'm articulating a strategy that can save lives. When I say that I want never again, I mean never again. We're not only going to use the budget to enforce never again. We're going to pass it in the county code. Hopefully we can work with our delegation to enshrine it, and we're never going to have this again. The abuses of power will not happen again. And when I say we're going to fight for our children, to protect children, that means that, you know, a county commissioner is by law a non-voting member of the Board of Education, but that doesn't mean silent. You can count on me to fight to protect children in public schools. And you can count on me to be vigilant on educational issues, because after all, education is the largest portion of the county budget.
Yes, it is.
So, I don't have much else to say, so I'll open up the Q&A.
Ray, I just gotta say, you're an answer to prayer. It was 2 years ago, I started praying, God, please change the heart of the people of Maryland. When I see young men like you and how hard you've worked, and I remember the first time I met you was at the Women's Club, and you've been everywhere. And I'm just really thankful that you are working so hard, and I wanna do my best to help you. So if there's anything you can think of that we can do as individuals to tell people about you, what's the main thing you'd like us to say when we go door to door for you?
Okay, so I do have a script, but first, you made a thought pop into my head, because I have been everywhere.
You have,
So,
working hard.
and I'm able to go everywhere because my wife is at home watching over our 2 kids, my oldest who's almost 3, my youngest who's 9 months going on 10 months, and they're a handful. So I want to publicly thank my wife behind her back for all of her hard work in carrying this campaign. I know it's not been easy on her.
What's
So,
your next big project? But we need to hear from the treasurer.
so along those lines, when I go door to door, I basically say a few things. I say, hello, my name is Ray Fava, which is pretty easy because I'm actually Ray Fava. I'm not sure what you say when you knock for a different candidate, but I'm sure you have that in mind. And say I'm running for county commissioner, obviously. Sometimes I'll say I'm a conservative running in the Republican primary, kind of gauge people's views. And then I say my key issues are I oppose state-level lockdowns and mandates. I want to protect children in school from indoctrination, leftist indoctrination like critical race theory and inappropriate sex education or sex education in kindergarten. And I want to make sure our property taxes don't spike with inflation by lowering the property tax rate to offset inflation. So those are the three things I say, and then I say, here's my information, and I'd like your vote on July 19th.
Perfect.
So that's my door pitch in a nutshell.
What I found interesting is all the parents that are so concerned about bullying and have become bullies themselves online. And the indoctrination is a form of bullying of the kids and of the parents and of any teachers. And saying, for example, there's no CRT is what's a mindset. And in the second breath of saying there's no CRT, they say, why are you against CRT? Because you're doing it right now. So, yeah, I think I wasn't expecting. I think everyone needs to hear your analogy of the COVIDian.
Branch Covidian.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a serious subject, but you do make it. You have instilled your humor into it, which makes it a little more palatable, and then you get to the serious thing after. I would stay on that message too, because it's very engaging how you put it that way. I was waiting for you to keep going with it.
I really could. There's the holy texts that are of accepted science.
Right. I didn't want to be insulting to say I wasn't expecting stand-up when I came here, but your topic is serious, but you have a way of presenting it that's really accessible.
It's good to hear.
You answered both my questions. Prayer and the preborn. Prayer and the preborn. Let's restore prayer and the preborn rights in Carroll County. So thank you very much. You answered
Thank
my
you.
questions.
And then the flyers. So we are doing a campaign rally on July 5th. Guess we'll hand these out later. I want to interrupt to hand them out. You hand them out. Someone else hand them out. So we're doing a rally on July 5th, Tuesday, July 5th. And this will be at the Westminster National Golf Course, as I've been pretty open about my strategy for winning this election. And that is that we recognize where the voters are, not where we otherwise perceive them to be. And the voters exist in Westminster 21158. Tawnytown is not the power base of this district. They may think they're the power base, but they're not. The majority of Tawnytown is about 30% of the voters.
They're just closer together, that's all.
They are closer together, but they are about 30% of the voters. Majority of the voters are scattered across the greater Westminster, not the city limits, but the greater portion of Westminster, or even the few neighborhoods in southern Westminster. So that's the majority of the district, and our fundraiser is being held at National Golf Course in Westminster along 97, which is a core vein or artery of our district roadway. And
How much you charge?
we're just doing $25
$30.
cover charge, or $30. $30. I don't rate my own thing. But we have another mailer we're trying to pay for. We're going to probably blitzkrieg the internet with Facebook ads leading up to the election, because we need to have mailers out before early voting starts.
Right.
And there's no use doing a mailer that comes out the day before the election, because early voting, a lot of people have already voted by then. So that's going to be our push. And we're going to have some guest speakers. Those will be announced later on. This is going to be exciting. And again, the core of the district is Westminster. They have close to 50% of the votes are in 21158 zip code. And we recognize that. And in recognition of that, we have done an aggressive ground game. The last 2 weeks prior to today, I have taken off work to focus on the campaign. I have been door knocking all over this county, and I have learned a lot of things about the county. Conservatives definitely don't live as much in towns. That's just a fact. The phenomenon of Democrats registering as Republican in order to affect primaries, I believe that's real. And then one of the biggest issues that I get, that people say, is the children in schools. That seems to be the most pressing issue on people's hearts and minds. So as a parent, I have 2 children. I don't want them to suffer what the children, I shielded my kids from the COVID generation phenomenon. And I'm very glad to have done that. But, not everyone could have, because they had older kids. My oldest is turning 3, so it's a lot easier to do that. But people are concerned about the next generation. More people are homeschooling. And even though we have a pretty good public school system here, a lot of people are homeschooling. And they're taking more ownership of their kids' education, which is a good thing. So, just interesting notes about the county and these streets with I've been going on backwoods roads and stuff like that. Even literally a road called Backwoods Road. I knocked on. So I've been knocking all over the county. I don't know how many hundreds of voters that I've made in the last 2 weeks, but this push is real. I want 2,000 votes on election day. I don't think that's attainable in a 5-member field, but we're shooting for 2,000 votes, because you can't lose. I don't think you can lose in Carroll County with 2,000 votes in a commissioner race. So we're shooting for 2,000, and any support to help get us there is appreciated. I can give you streets to door knock. I can give you the list to door knock, which I've been using Google Maps. I've uploaded an address list to Google Maps, and it's just a high-tech way of doing something very simple. And it's been great for me. It's not always super accurate, as you'll learn, but it might point you to a mailbox, but not the driveway or stuff like that. But
How about
rural,
volunteers?
I do need volunteers. So if you want to volunteer for my campaign, I got streets that I could use knocking on. I got more signs to hand out, and we got a buttload of palm cards, the new sexy palm cards. Can you show everyone the new palm cards that my brother here designed?
All right.
They look better than the old volunteers. And obviously, you can split your time helping out multiple candidates. I'm not opposed to one person handing out my stuff and then Dan Cox or Sally Taylor stuff. So I'm not opposed to that whatsoever, but we need volunteers at some of these precincts. Some of these precincts are white whale precincts. I will probably go to the largest one and stand there myself. And the largest one, I believe, we count. What's funny is when you do drive up those long driveways, people are really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because we're good people.
Yeah, exactly.
I always feel like I'm
Census.
trespassing when I go up those roads.
Exactly.
I know.
So-
Yeah, it's so funny because I always feel like I'm trespassing when I go back there. And one time I went back in the woods and they had this beautiful home and this guy, you can't tell a book by its cover. I mean, he had tattoos all over him and he was like, oh yeah, I want a Cox sign in his yard. So, you know, we just never know
So,
how conservative.
otherwise,
By the way,
door knocking is always welcome. Again, we have a lot of palm cards there, and there's more where that came from. There's like 3 times the amount that's in there, more where that came from. So we're prepared. We got more signs. You can take a sign if you haven't already. And otherwise, I don't. Any more questions? Otherwise, I'm happy to step down.
On the subject of inflation, would you be willing to propose to the delegation a motion legislation to indict the Fed?
Well, I don't know if I can do criminal indictments as a county commissioner.
Just saying, inflation, indict the Fed.
They might pull the
That's a
power to
question for-
tax as the power to destroy.
That's a question for David or Michael Peruga. So.
And I'd love to hear from the whole group. I tell you, my biggest concern or the biggest problem moving forward, I think our current commissioners, you described them well, they started out with COVID, they were gonna have a deficit, found out it was a surplus. As tough as they are on money, they didn't even realize that. Then this past year, they spent some one-time money as ongoing. They've been so proud of their 1 + 5 year budget, they have deficits moving forward. I think the biggest decision that any of us that get elected are gonna have to make is what do we cut? Because they've created a hole that I don't think we can get out of.
They've grown the size of the
Well,
employee base.
the health department can get reduced. It does not need to get over $4 million because we have no oversight. The state controls that entity. So I don't think we should be increasing that funding.
Yeah, and when you cut them, they'll cut something like when we cut the health department, they cut, following up on people burning. And I said, good.
Yeah, I don't think we need
Leave the
to-
people alone.
I don't think we need to fund marketing programs for Pfizer.
No.
Well, I think some of that is our partnership too, because,
Yep.
Jordana said the other day, we had, what was it, 2.5 billion coming to the state for COVID relief funds and never got to us, so how much of that?
I thought you said
was-
tax cuts from Trump administration.
Well, that's another issue.
Right.
I thought
And
that's
she
what
was
it
talking
said.
about, she was also talking about money that was supposed to go to COVID that's now going to transporting illegals here.
Right.
And then there's also the penny wise and pound foolish philosophies that we have in Annapolis, where every tax goes up, whether it's property tax, income tax, retirement tax on military and other workers that have spent their whole career working here, whether it was for the state or police or fire, and we're driving those folks out of the state. There's this mass exodus of not only people, but subject matter expertise of folks who may have finished that first career, but they're ready for another career and to continue to give that back to the state. And it's too easy to move or live, say, within an hour anywhere in Maryland in an adjacent state that is much more friendly to your bank account. And so, and most of those folks? Conservatives who have had enough. So then we have.
The Ehrlich family's moving to Florida.
Right.
You know how many people that I know that vacation
Mary
in Florida?
Haynes lives
Yeah.
in Cloud
Like,
Road.
raise your hand if you don't know someone who's vacationed in Florida over the last 2 years.
But they
No?
I know.
No, if you don't, because I think everyone here knows someone who went multiple people who went to Florida over the last 2 years to vacation
So
because how
who
free
leaves
they
Carroll,
were.
who leaves
Right.
Carroll, the efflux or the hemorrhage is from people like us. And the influx are from people who want less crime, better schools, lower taxes, more open space, less traffic. But they're bringing their voting policy, as I say, they're Californicating Texas. You know, if you want that, keep it there. If you want those things and you have, and you want to move to Carroll because your values already align with what's here, then great. But if you're coming to make it, where you are, where you were, then,
Yeah, and I can imagine if Pennsylvania gets Mastriano and
Right.
we get, I don't know, Franchot, I imagine a lot of Marylanders will hop
more
across that
influx.
border.
But we would have so much more revenue if we didn't lose those
Yeah.
folks. It would be less say per person, but overall, same with businesses that are leaving.
And it would also be nice, and I don't know, this is a budgetary thing, but
Mhm.
Eric Boucher always said that we get 34 cents on the dollar for every dollar that, for Carroll County's tax contribution to the state, we get 34 cents on the dollar back to the county. And I don't know
I don't know
how much
what
you
the
guys
outside
can fight to
staff
make
are.
sure that, Carroll County isn't just keep a little bit more of the revenue that it sends to the state, and, and do a little bit less subsidizing of, say, Baltimore City
Baltimore City, right?
and their corruption. So that'd be nice, and that could easily help us out with our forecasted budget shortfalls or deficits.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of solutions that we can come up with, and hopefully, we can dig ourselves out of the hole without raising taxes or, just becoming like the people that we oppose.
I agree with him on that, but I hope his agenda doesn't push the commissioners out of a job with a new form of government, with the charter government.
Right.
Well, that would be stupid, because that's more.
Representatives across the country as a whole. Those people will eventually run for Congress. So even though the Republican Congress currently sucks now, the future replacements are looking a lot brighter than they were pre-Trump, that's for sure.
Keep reminding people twice your age, like me, how motivated you are with family and career and politics at your age to do that, and that's where the future is.
Yes, that's right.
So, that's really all I got.
Good job.